Well, my name is Jill Wade, and my name is Jill Wade, and I am a BCBA with Behavioral Health Holdings in Kansas City. I have worked with this company for over 2 years, but I've been in this field for over 20 years now. And within the company, I have worked in our crisis location, the early intervention, which we will talk about later, but goes from 18 months to 7-8 years. And also in our ISLs, I would be the clinician there. And I've also been a part of doing school consultations for our company.
And my name's Sally Sin. I've worked for our company about 6 years now. I've also worked in school settings. I've worked kind of in the schools, kind of in a para position. I've done a lot of parent training. Now I've worked in our residential homes and our crisis units as a clinician, really writing those BSPs and the programming and help to set up those homes so that they're successful for the individuals and learners that live there. And what we're going to do
now is so you can follow along as we go through the presentation. Okay.
And as you can see, we'll kind of cover a few things today. We've introduced ourselves. We're just going to give a little bit of an overview, talk about kind of what our company does and what we've done. We'll also be talking a lot about homework goals, setting up that. We use the word homework here, but really this would be anything that you guys are working on at home, any programming that you're doing at home with your children or with your adults, whoever you're working with, really setting that up so that it's successful, so that it's a natural part of your day, and then building those routines in. Then of course we'll end with a little summary. Pretty exciting, but really this whole thing, what we want to do, our goal is to help you feel equipped to put those routines into place and to really make sure that your day feels, it feels like it goes smoothly and that it's easy. Jill, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. So I will briefly go over our mission and just the separate divisions within our company. And we focus a lot on creating meaningful change in the lives of disabilities or individuals with disabilities and their families. And what this means is we want to make a meaningful change, a change in the lives of all the individuals we work with and their families. And we work with individuals from 18 months all the way up to the later stage in life. And you know, meaningful change for each individual is definitely different. I mean, meaningful change varies from person to person, to family to family. Family mealtime or successful trip to the grocery store might be a meaningful change for one family, whereas another family, successful, meaningful change might be being able to be a regular class at school or to be able to attend day program. So it really is individualized, and we focus on working with the families and caregivers, any party that is involved with that individual. It is important that everyone is on the same page for what is best for the individual and the future goals, you know, both short and long term. So that is our company mission. And some of the divisions we have is the early intervention autism clinic, and 18 months to 7 years. It can be extended to 8 depending on the situation. They are one-to-one services. They are patient and family-centered treatment. And we focus on daily life skills to social skills, such as sharing, being able to tolerate sitting beside your peers. And the older ones, we focus on getting them ready for school and completing those simple tasks, tolerating sitting for certain periods of time, tolerating circle time. And then we have Milestones Academy. So these are all in the same building we have. And they go from 5 up to 21 years. It's on-the-site training. And we work with school districts. So our individuals would come up from school districts. Some of them live within our organization, some live with other providers, but the majority still live at home with their parents or caregivers. And it's all year round, and we have that intensive behavioral and educational services all in one place. And then we come to our residential services. So these would be our group homes and our ISLs. Our goal would be that individuals would go from the more restrictive that they may need at that time, and with behavioral plans and learning skill programs, they would then progress all the way to an ISL, which is an individual supported living or independent supported living, where they are independent, possibly with a little bit of help with doing their chores, their laundry, accessing the community, and going to work, going to those day programs. So our goal would be to address those behaviors, teach those replacement behaviors, and teach those life skills, so everyone can be as successful as possible and be a part of the community and be able to participate in those activities that they really enjoy, whereas previously their behaviors may have held them back. And then finally, we have our acute crisis. Now, this will be for those with severe behavioral concerns at that time. It's a 30 to 60-day program. It's very intense, and we get individuals from the home or from other providers, and it's short term. And it's really to reduce those behaviors and to teach those replacement ones so they can be successfully integrated back into the family life or possibly into a new living environment. So I'll pass this back over to Sally so we can begin to cover our topic today to help you have those more structured routines and to help family life run a bit smoother, which is what we all need.
Thank you, Jill. One of the things I think that when we're talking today, one of the things I really want to stress is that really this is about living in our own homes and with our children, with those that we care for. It's a home life. This is a home environment. And really, the idea is that everyone living in that home is comfortable, that the home is a functional and happy place for everyone to live and to be, and to get the things done that need to be done in the home. And so I think a lot of what we're going to focus on today is building up a routine that allows us as a family unit to do that. And what does that mean? So, things that you might need to do in your home is hygiene. You need to be able to effectively take care of yourself and your children. Preparing meals, doing homework, or possibly providing a place to have therapy sessions for the children living in the home. Some of us now with COVID are working in the homes. Sometimes we're doing all of this at the same time. It can be really, really challenging. I know for us and our family, it's definitely presented some pretty significant challenges. So what we really want to make sure is that we are kind of prepared for each challenge, and that we're taking each thing and we look at the day, and there's, I know for me, I can look at a day and I've got a list that looks, like this. It's so long. How would I possibly be able to all of that in just one day. So, I have to get to work. I have to get the kids to school. I have speech therapy in the morning and a soccer practice after school. And then another child who's coming home. And currently I have one who is home because there was a COVID thing. My husband's working at home, but that is pretty intensive sometimes. So he's not always able to step away. How do you make it all fit in? So that's kind of what we do. But the easiest way to look at it is breaking it down into small steps. We have a morning routine, you have lunchtime, you have like a list of chores, but those chores aren't all at once. You have, the beds, you have laundry, you have cooking, cleaning, all of that. But when you break those down into small steps, it becomes a lot more doable. And this piece here is that mentally prepare yourself. So when we first started looking at this, it was kind of before COVID, when I think we were looking at, okay, I might come home from work and I'm going to step in and I have all of these big responsibilities, or maybe I stay home. So, it's like first thing in the morning, okay, I have to get up, but I know that as soon as I get up, there's going to be a crying child and there's going to be this and there's going to be that. And maybe my youngest has spilled everything all over the floor, and how am I going to deal with that? So it's just taking that minute to mentally prepare yourself, to find that calm and to say it's going to be okay. But at the same time, don't raise your expectations up that this is going to be the best, perfect, most great. wonderful day in the world. It might be, and you certainly don't want to, optimism is great, but it's also important to be like, you know what, when I get up, I might have peanut butter smeared all over the kitchen. And it's possible that, someone's going to call in sick and my workload's going to be double. And it's possible that my child is, climbing on the staircase and another one is, doing this. It is all possible, but it's going to be okay. And then you kind of take a deep breath, you step out, and you go and you face those challenges. And generally, if you're prepared for the worst, when it's not so bad, it's a lot easier to step in and to just go with it. I think as we're talking here, maybe focusing more on that like after school routine, or perhaps that, I don't know if any of you are using that behavioral services online. So if you're looking at that, really, 5 minutes before the bus gets there, or before you leave to pick them up, that's when you would do this. If, you have the children home and you're going to be jumping into a therapy session, maybe there is something that they can do for 5 minutes alone, or with you just there supervising something they really like, and that's going to vary for a lot of our learners and children. So it might be that you let them use the iPad for a few minutes in order to give yourself a short break to be prepared for that next step. Jill?
Okay, so what I'm going to cover is antecedent strategies. And what we mean by antecedent is anything before, and what I can do to prepare for what is going to happen. And as Sally said, we plan for the best every day, but we always have a plan for the worst. We're ready. Things happen. One day might be great. Another day you might struggle. Your child might have not had sleep that day, and it might be raining and they can't go outside to the swing. Life happens, and we just have to prepare for that. And preparing yourself, as Sally said, is number one priority. Just take that deep breath. Every day will be different. It's life and it's okay. And really it's prioritizing what is important that I do prior to them coming home from school, day program, or even waking up. Because as Sally mentioned, not everyone nowadays is going to work or back at school. So how do I get ready for the day? And we have 4 tools, and they cover visual schedules, prior manipulations, which means changing things, having activities ready, and favorite snacks ready and portioned. Okay, so it's really smaller steps to the bigger picture. So for visual schedules, even if you have a visual calendar, and this may not even be for your individual, it could be just for you, a calendar somewhere that you can visually see really easy. Okay, 9 o'clock, Jill has this, then Sally has this, and even if it's in different colors, but just so you have that immediate hint or guide as to what is going to be going on. Because I find even if you've 1 child or 4, it can still be crazy. And that's really just to help you just, okay, because I find if I get confused, or I feel I've missed a time, or something that one of my kids have, it gets me panicked for the rest of the day, as in, well, what else have I missed? So it's just organizing just that prior, and it's just for a glance, so you can see, okay, this is what will be going on. And that's the plan. This is what should be going on. As we know, it doesn't always go that smoothly, but it's just that extra tool for you. And also we find if just a whiteboard with, be it a picture or a word, depending on your child or your individual's abilities, as in the schedule for the day. And even if you just do it up to lunchtime or breakfast, so they could see, okay, first you have playtime, and then we're going to have breakfast, then we're going to have shower, then we're going to have a chore, and then playtime. Even if it's just bullet points or a picture, just so they can also see, okay, this is the order of things. And then it will also make it easier that when the order is out for some reason, maybe you have to have the shower before breakfast or vice versa, because there's an appointment, that they're still used to seeing, okay, but this is still the order of things. This is how we're going to do. And for some individuals, you may be able to have a more detailed one that covers the day, and some you might just be able to have three activities there. For some of our individuals, we have a first and then. So they only have two things. First, you will pick your toys up, then we can go swing. And it varies from individual to individual. But with those visual schedules, they can be a very calming and an immediate help for, when you wake up. You just waking up in the morning when you have a lot going on can be very overwhelming. And to just have that minute to just see something and go, okay, so now I know I have this. And it might not seem as overwhelming as possible, or as, initially thought. And next is prior manipulations. What can we change prior to doing anything? And this is to do with the environment. So if, let's say first everyone's at school and they're coming home from school, how can you prepare the house for them coming home? Do you need to move away their favorite toys if there's something they have to do first when they come in? Do you have to remove some breakables? Do you have groceries that need to be put away or laundry away? If you don't get something done that you had planned, it is okay. Life happens, now and again, there may be laundry to do, but you sit down, put your feet up, or you spend time with another one of your children, it's all right. Close that laundry door. It will get done eventually, but do not always feel the pressure that everything has to be done. And as Sally said, it's a functioning home. We all wish we could have this perfect, oh, this is what we do every day and everything runs smoothly. It does not. I have a almost 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, and going by what happened yesterday, in my home may never run smoothly, but it's life. Take a deep breath and we go on from there. Environmental, when they come in, do they not have immediate access to the television? Do you do snack time first? So let's put the remote controls up. And it's all about just getting your home ready for when they come back home. If they're in the home, let's get their home ready for when they wake up from a nap or when they wake up for the morning. What do you want them to do? What is your plan? Because as we all know, if we don't have a plan, they're going to have a plan, and they're going to have their plan, and it may not be it may not be very clean, it may not be very organized, but having your own plan is going to make your life run smoother than having your child run your home with their plan. Have activities ready. Is their iPad or AAC device charged, or any of those tablets they use? We find a lot of issues in like our ISLs. Some of our individuals are very fond of watching roller coaster videos, or they use it to communicate. And if they're not charged overnight and they pick it up when they wake up, they become very anxious, they become very frustrated. And with our individuals that cannot verbally communicate that's when we see those behaviors. Because if it's something that is comforting to them and all of a sudden it's not available, and even for those, especially those that use them to communicate, that can straight away cause them to become anxious and cause those behaviors to begin to occur. So always make sure they're charged. And even if that is having an older sibling take on that responsibility, or making sure it's charged in a location that you can see. If you want to have it charging, or it needs to be charging and they don't have access, put it up high where they can't see it, but that it's still charging. Have coloring materials ready at the table, or Lego boxes within reach, or puzzle pieces all there. Anything that your individual prefers, have it ready. Even if they cannot have access immediately, know that it's ready and it's within reach. I have found there's nothing worse than my daughter going to do a puzzle and earning that puzzle, and there's 3 pieces missing towards the end. So it's all about organization. And you know, if something is not there, just put it aside, get rid of it, out of sight. But have those things that are preferred available.
And Jill, I'm going to interrupt real quick.
And then that, go ahead.
I want to interrupt real quick. I have a box here. I don't know if you guys can see my screen at the time, but this is a box. It's just, I mean, I got it because it had wooden front, so it matched my table. That's the only reason. It is full of all the materials that my children need when they come home from school. Oh, I just dumped one. So it's not perfect. I have a Ziploc baggie full of pencils and pens. I have a piece where they can clip their school papers. I have, well, this is supposed to help. It's like a little abacus to help them, my son count. He usually uses it to play. But if he's waiting on me, it's not perfect. It's just a bunch of materials that are all in one box in one place that's kept by my table. So I just kind of, to emphasize and to show you what this might look like, it can be very, very simple and easy. It took me about 6 minutes to put it together once I had the box. Here's the,
Sally,
here's that box I was showing.
I am going to, or can we somehow get Sally to be able to share so she can show that box?
Oh, I think I'm back.
That would be.
I think I may be back on now.
There we go. Perfect. There we go.
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, but here's the box. So it's just a simple box. I think I got it at maybe Hobby Lobby on sale for $5 or $6. I have my tools. So this is, you know, for math, but also for playing when my son is waiting on me. I have a clipboard. So if they have important papers from mom, they just clip it there. I know it's there right after school. And then I have a Ziploc baggie of markers, pens, everything they need. You know, this is going to look different for every learner, for every child. I've actually stuck in 3 or 4 bags of chips. Sometimes if I know I'm going to be gone, they know there's school snacks in the box. They could grab it out. Everything's ready to go. I had another family I worked with a lot. Their son was nonverbal. They had a similar box. It had the puzzle that he would use after school. It had any materials we would use for the therapy sessions we were doing. I had, when my son was in speech, we would have little animals because that's what the speech therapist used to keep him motivated. But all of this stuff, I just want to emphasize how simple this can be. Organization is not my first skill. My sister has a beautifully organized home and her shelves and everything are perfect. Mine's not, but this is functional. Took me 5 or 6 minutes to put together once I had the materials. And also it's simple enough for me to understand, all of my children to understand. And my husband, if he's the one who's going to be running it, he just knows, okay, I get the brown box, I put it on the table and we have everything we need. It's easy. And I think that's really, really what's the key piece to all of these things that Jill's talking about.
And I think what Sally said there, that her sister has it beautifully organized and this, but Sally's box is functional for her home and it's going to look different for everyone. And even if you wanted one box for every individual in a home, or you wanted in separate individual boxes, because you know their abilities are different and what they're going to be working on is different, but that it's consistent. So regardless if you're there, your partner's there, a grandparent, a caregiver, a therapist, they all know the same thing is in place, that blue box is Jill, red box is Sally, and that, you know, it will help it run smoother. But again, it's all what's functional for your home, because Sally is different from her sister. I am definitely different from my brothers and sisters. And it's just, again, it's just life. So what works for you? Okay. And last we have the favorite snacks ready and portioned. We all know snack time and food time is very important, well, to everybody, but especially snack time. And we have found that everyone has a favorite snack. And if someone comes home from school or work or is done with a nap, or, you know, anytime within the home, and they want a snack and their favorite snack is not available, or maybe there's a half a crumb left in the bottom of a box, that like my 18-year-old tends to do, and it can be very disappointing and very upsetting, and can lead to, you know, behaviors and just that, well, someone is sad the snack is not available. So I would say, one, if you are going to offer snacks, make sure you're offering snacks of what you have available. And if you're giving two choices, make sure it's two choices that you have available. If there is one snack and one snack only your individual or child loves, I would just make sure you have that in the house. And in relation to it being proportioned, we have some individuals that when they go to get their own snack, it means, they want goldfish. And they go take that big old box of goldfish then because that is their snack. Portioning is very important. And to have it already portioned in a container, we have that in some of our homes. So they can get it themselves, but they're getting one portion. It will increase their independence. You know what they're getting, they know what they're getting, and it's already ready. For you to be doing something with one child and then another child wants a snack and you have to go between one and the other, and one's unhappy you're leaving them, one's unhappy you haven't automatically handed their snacks, because that is our job. They click their fingers and we produce the snack, and to have all those ready is really going to help things run smoothly. So they are just the 4 tools we have, and we wanted to make this as basic as possible. We didn't want to overload with the information, but I just again go over with the visual schedules. They will help you and your child, regardless of their ability. Having a whiteboard, and even the ones we have them in our homes. I have them here. My kids don't look at them, but I have them here. And just the Dollar General whiteboards. This is what happens in this order, and it would just make it easier for everyone to know what the expectations for that day is. And even when you may feel you're getting overloaded, take that deep breath, just look up there. And it's okay if you miss something, just move on to the next thing. Functioning home, this is life. Someone may be having a rough time that may take 30, 40 minutes just to, get them back to where they should be and hug it out. And you may have missed something. It is okay. You missed it. Go on to the next thing. And prior manipulations, getting that environment ready. If there's something you don't want them to have, remove it. If it's going to be an issue that day, remove it. If, let's say, your child is coming home from school and you got an email from the teacher saying they are very upset, they didn't get access to an iPad, or their iPad time was cut short at school and they're already getting frustrated, perhaps remove that. So you can, start your schedule, start your expectations in the home, and then they get access to it. But it's all about you preparing your home for what is coming. And have activities ready. Again, important thing is have those devices charged, even if it's just what they use to watch cartoons or do math games or watch those roller coasters, or especially if they use it to communicate, have them charged. And any materials like Sally's box. And again, it's simple. It may be a little puzzle piece. It may be little plastic toys, cars that they like running along the back of a chair. Whatever it is for your home, that is what you put into it. And again, snacks, important. Have them portioned. It's going to make it easier for you and easier for them and increase their independence. So after that, we're going to go on to homework expectations. For Sally.
All right. Now your homework expectations, it's a lot like it's just setting this up and setting yourself up to do well. So it's when does it occur and where does it occur? If everybody in the home is sure of when it's supposed to happen and where it's supposed to happen, there's 2 battles you will only have to fight one time, or maybe 3 or 4 times. But then after that, it just becomes part of that routine. And that's just what it is. And you want to set this up. You want to take your family's life into consideration when you're doing this. Because everybody has different kinds of schedules and different kinds of, a different kind of home life. So I think that it's really important to take all of that into consideration. And I'm saying homework expectation, But again, this could be maybe when you work on life skills training. Hey, we need to teach Timmy to fold his clothes, and we're going to practice this every day. We need to make sure that Molly is able to charge her own iPad. So we want to, have that set up, but we want to make sure that this is happening on a regularly scheduled basis so that we actually maintain this skill after we've learned it. So this is going to look very different. Sometimes for a lot of our families, this is going to have to take place in 2 different home settings, maybe at mom's house and maybe at dad's house. And it's okay if they look different. I think that's what's really key here, is that there isn't a perfect way to do this. It just needs to be consistent to that environment, and that everyone is communicating and able to understand what the expectation is. So maybe Monday through Friday, Molly lives with mom, and at mom's house, the expectation is mom gets home from work at 5, but then there's dinner time. And so they do homework after dinner, because that's the best time to do it. And that is when mom is free and available to help. The teacher might have told Molly at school, and I know for my son, one of my sons is very, very literal. He said, Mom, my teacher says I need to come home and put my backpack away and do my homework the first thing. But so I did it, but then he didn't understand it. He needed that extra help. Well, I was available after dinner. So, we kind of had to talk about what that expectation would be in our house so that I could give him the help he needed. So I think, so now, for us, what we've said is they come home, they do as much homework as they can after school. And then after dinner, we sit down as a family and I help with, any questions that they had that maybe they needed extra help with. And that worked for us right now this year. Things change year to year. But also, where is it going to happen? If I put all 3 of my children at the same table, which seemed like the easiest solution. We all sit at the dining room table and do homework in the same hour together. No, really what that means is someone spilling somebody's, milk on somebody else's paper, and somebody else is grabbing somebody's leg under the table. So for us, we needed to have various locations. That's fine. But I didn't want them fighting every day. So Kenneth can do his homework at the table. Georgie can do her homework up in her bedroom, because that's where she does best. And my son, Sebastian, who needs more help, goes and sits in the office with my husband, and he does his homework right there, where we can kind of keep an eye on him and make sure that he's, practicing whatever it is he needs to practice. But they know that now. And so it's very easy after school. Hey, everybody, go where you're supposed to go. And we know when we do it right after school for a little bit, but we also know that before everybody can go play video games or whatever, they have fun after dinner. They have to sit down with me and show me their homework, and I answer any questions. And it's routine now, it's easier now. And I'm not going to say there weren't battles in the beginning, and it didn't take us a while to get here, because we had to figure that out. But once you can figure out that schedule, it makes life a lot easier. But just make sure it works. If your best time is in the morning, before work, maybe you go to work a little bit later, or you don't, and your evenings are very busy, full of practices. Maybe that time where you help with homework is 7 a.m. Or maybe, your children are very, very tired by dinner time, and it's impossible to get them to even look at a book at that point. So it is important to catch them immediately after school. So, then you'd say, okay, we come home from school, we don't have any, I really suggest that you don't go straight from electronics to homework. For most children, this is extremely hard. It does give you that break. And I know earlier I said you might let them take that iPad break for a couple of minutes, so you could have a second. If so, make sure that that's like a minute or two, and just kind of part of that routine. But if you have a child where it's very difficult for them to end that electronic time, don't do it right before homework. It's just too hard to jump from one to the other. So maybe they get home from school, they do their home, they get that snack, so they feel good. Some of our kids are really wiggly. Maybe they need to go run around a little bit. But then after that, they sit down and they do homework, knowing that, oh, when this is done, I get to have my preferred TV show or whatever it is they like to do. Or we can go, maybe they get a little bit of electronics before dinner time, because you don't want that too late in the evening. So then they eat dinner, and before they would get, watch a YouTube video or something, then they would sit down at the table. And while they're sitting down at the table, that would be, while they're still there even maybe, hey, you go bring in your plate, come sit down. We're already here. We're going to sit down and look at that homework together. That's what we did in our family, because once they scatter, it's another process, and it's another thing you have to do to get them all back. So really just setting up what works for you and for your learners is going to be your easiest. It's really going to be the simplest way to do that. And Jill?
Yeah, I just want to, in relation to, let's say it's not homework and it is those chores, what we tend to do is when we remember, oh, this needs to be done, and then I know in my house, then that's when I start yelling, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. Whereas what it should be, or what would probably work better is, you know, let's do this first, and then you can. In some of our homes, like one of our individual loves his van ride, let's do our chore first and then go. And what's important to remember when we're getting our individuals to do chores are daily life skills. They're something we have to do throughout our whole life. And to start those off early or as soon as possible is crucial, because it's something we can't escape from. And when we start doing them with our children or our individuals, we got to remember their abilities. So if their ability of making their bed is just picking their pillows up off the floor, putting them where they should be and pulling the comforter off, perfect. If that's where their ability is now, that is it. They've made their bed, high fives, outstanding. Yes, let's go swing. We have to always take into consideration the current abilities of our children. And so if you want those chores done, and again, it's a case of, oh, dirty clothes in the laundry basket, or put your shoes in your room. Now, the difference between one individual putting their shoes in their room, yes, they pick them up and they put them down in their room. That is brilliant, because that is the ability they are, compared to, let's say, their older sibling who is more capable picking up their shoes and throwing them in their bedroom. That's two different things. Their abilities are different, so that needs to be tackled differently. But yeah, when we're introducing those chores, making sure our expectations, one, are not too high. Let's work on their ability levels and build it from that. Let's do the smaller picture, those little steps that are going to get to that bigger picture of them, then maybe smoothing out their comforter or putting their pillow straight. You know, this is what we envision in our heads sometimes is not realistic. I don't think I will ever see my 18-year-old's bedroom clean. It's just a fact. I've come to address it. It's there. Whereas if we have to know their abilities, he's capable. We have to know their abilities when we're introducing these chores. So with the bedroom, or pushing in their chair after dinner. Let's start with pushing in our chair. And then maybe after that, let's move our plates to the sink. And maybe after that will be, let's rinse our plate. Maybe after that is, let's rinse our plate and put it in the dishwasher. It's all these little steps are going to eventually build that independence and build up to that bigger picture of, perhaps then they'll be able to push their chair in and put their dishes and all away in the dishwasher. And when the dishwasher's clean, they're putting stuff away. It's our expectations have to be realistic on what their abilities are. And then when we slowly introduce those and praise those small steps that are in fact huge steps for them, we can progress to the next level. And always take into consideration your family life and your functioning and how it works for the family. So is it really that important? They make their bed right now as soon as they got up, when, you know, they're not fully awake, or, you know, they've had their shower, they put their dirty clothes away, they've had breakfast. Brilliant. Let's get our chore done, and then we can watch your roller coaster videos. Or let's get our chore done and then we can go for a walk. Or let's get our chore done, make our bed, and we'll build Lego blocks. I think it's really what works.
Yeah, just like Jill's saying, it's all about what works. And I think too, it's really important to remember, kind of pressing on that, when you are trying to figure out where they're at, don't jump too fast. So a lot of times, especially with our kids with special needs, some of our kids, we put things off for a long time, or they learn it a little slower, but then we expect them to have it all at once. So I'll see a lot of families like, well, they didn't ever make their bed or do anything to clean their room. They're 12 years old now. And if this is you, don't beat yourself up, because this is true for a lot of families. And maybe you're working on other skills. It doesn't matter when you start. But if you're 12 years old and you're just now starting, and what you've got is that you are working right now and putting the shoes in the closet, but don't go from Billy, put your shoes in the closet day 1, and then day 2, you're like, great, now close the closet door. Still a good step, small steps. But then day 3 or 4, you're like expecting Billy to have his shoes in the closet, door closed, all the clothes put away, and his bed made. That's not going to work. You have to take those small steps, and you have to give them time to really master that skill, for that to become part of the routine. And then you could add a little bit more. So every time there's something new, it's very hard. So you might say it's not hard to clean your room, but if cleaning the bedroom is 15 different skills they have not yet mastered, it will feel very hard for them and very challenging. So work on 1 or 2 of those skills and then help them with the rest. And they can still help and be a part of the process, but don't have that don't jump straight to an expectation of, we're going to have the entire room clean, or we're going to do all of the laundry. Or even with homework, or I know there was a small learner where they were supposed to have iPad communication with a teacher. So, and the teacher wanted to have, an hour, between the 2 of them. You can't just take a very small learner and they can sit in front of that iPad instantly and give that hour attention span when you're working with someone who may really have a goal of 2 or 3 minutes. You're going to work on 2 or 3 minutes, and then, okay, great job. We did shapes for 2 or 3 minutes. Now let's go do some wiggle time, and everybody goes and wiggles. And then you come back and you do 2 or 3 minutes more working on emotions. And then you get up and you take your little wiggle break and you come back. You've got to keep those expectations where that learner is at, and then you can slowly increase it. 2 minutes can become 3, 3 minutes can become 3.5, 4. And keep in mind that even as adults, we're going to top out at a certain point. During my workday, I might work 8 hours or more, but I'm not necessarily going to have full concentration on something for 8 hours. All the research would suggest that would be terrible, and I would start to fail. So, it's okay to have those breaks, build in those breaks, and those breaks can be nice, fun things. Just make sure they're not so great that it's hard to come back. And I think we can move on to the next slide, unless you had more, Jill.
No, here we go.
And behavioral momentum. This tool is amazing. It is something I know Jill and we use all the time. We use it in the group homes. I've used it in school settings. I think a lot of teachers, we spoke to a group of teachers recently, and most of them used it regularly in a classroom setting. It's just starting with those easy tasks, those things that are very, very, your learner, your child's very, very likely to already to do or to engage in, and start with that, and then move slowly up to those harder things. So if I want my son, Sebastian, I want to say, Sebastian, I want you to sweep the floor. And he's, there playing cars on the floor. He's not going to want to get up and sweep the floor. But if I say, hey, Sebastian, come here a minute, he's going to come over. He's like, we've developed a relationship where he's likely to come over to me. So he'll come over. Okay, great job. And I, give a high five for that. Again, I put up my hand, which is a request for him to give me a high five back. He gives me a high five. And then I say, hey, will you come and sit down with mommy here? And he comes and we sit down. And then I say, okay, let's look at the floor. And, and I say, okay, what do we see on the floor? There's crumbs. And he likes to talk. So he goes on about, oh, I see all the crumbs on the floor. Oh, what do we need to fix it? A broom. Can you bring that here? And then now he's got the broom, and he's practiced 10 different times of listening to me. So he said, yes, 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 yes. And the idea behind behavioral momentum is that once we start doing something, even if there's a change to the environment or to the request, or the job gets a little bit harder, we're not likely to change our response, or at least not easily. So when I say, oh, could you sweep that up real quick? He said yes 10 times now. So it's going to be a lot easier for him to just get up and do it, by saying yes, even if it's not verbally, and sweep the floor, than it is for him to say nope, because then he has to change directions, and that's a lot of work. So as human beings, we're just likely to keep going with what we're doing. This is something that advertisers do. Workplaces use this. This is something that is true for pretty much all people. And it's something that's a tool that makes things, and because our idea is when we are getting kids to do their homework or to do a chore or to eat their healthy vegetables, it's not supposed to be terrible. These are just part of life. And those are things that you want to be able to do without that challenging behavior, that you want to really be able to just kind of smoothly move from one thing to the next. And this is just, I like to talk about this because I think it's such a powerful tool for parents, especially when getting kids to do homework, especially getting kids to do homework where homework's really, really difficult. I've worked with people with dyslexia, for example, and reading can become very, very difficult. So if you say, hey, we're going to sit here and we're going to read a chapter of this story, that is going to be a very hard way to start homework. So, you start with just, hey, let's sit down. Hey, let's eat our snack. Okay, great. Now, can you open the book? Oh, what do we have? Well, I'm going to read you the title, and can you read this person who wrote it? And you start really, really small, and you make those demands really, really simple. Or it could be something as simple as, oh, let's do the color sheet first, and then we'll do that reading for 20 minutes together second. Or if math is the difficult thing, we can do our English first and then move to math. Whatever it is, not presenting the hardest demand first, because I think as adults, and it can be super effective too, first then I'm going to do the hardest thing first and then reward myself with a simple task. It is not a terrible, it's definitely not a terrible thing, and it works. But for some of our learners, especially children, that's too much. I don't want to jump right into the hardest thing. I'm going to build up to it by doing my easier task first. And then that hard one's just, it's easy to keep going. And then maybe I build something else in afterwards to reward myself. You can combine them. But I think as adults, we really want to say, no, we're just going to do the hardest thing and get it over with. Sometimes that's not going to be the easiest, especially for our youngest learners. It can be very, very hard. Do you have anything or any examples, Jill?
An example I would have would, let's say it's time to clean up the Legos. And when you have behavioral momentum, make it fun. No one wants to clean up. It's very aversive. And if you have all these Legos everywhere and it's time to clean up, and you've got someone standing there going, no, and that's when pick up, oh, I got a yellow block. Yay, I'm going to stack the yellow blocks. Can you help me stack the yellow blocks? Can you hand me a yellow? And making those things fun is often going to change how it's already started to be perceived. Oh no, look at all these blocks everywhere. Whereas now cleaning up is a game. So you're helping me get those yellow blocks. Now, can you get the red blocks? Can you stack the red blocks? Can you do the blue box? And just, you presented it as a game. You presented them with, all of a sudden, to begin with, just handing you the yellow, and now you've moved it on to their stacking each separate color and then going to put them in the box. So they have actually cleaned it up. You helped, but instead of, them standing there and getting ready for that no on the feet to be stomped, you're the way you have presented it, your involvement. And a lot of the time, our individuals knowing, oh, well, you're willing to do it too. It's not something you're just making me do it, has a big impact, and be that model. And those small little requests, you can, without really them knowing it, you can make them bigger. Before long, it will be, you can say, oh, it's time to clean up. Can you put all the yellow blocks together, the red, and it will eventually go for them being independent. It may take longer because you made it so much fun, they wanted to do it with you, but they're still getting that idea of, oh, we're still putting them together and we're still putting them away, instead of all of a sudden it's been very overwhelming. And it's also going to be overwhelming if they've been asked to stop doing their preferred activity. You know, they love building blocks and all of a sudden they have to stop. No one really likes that. So it's also teaching those times where, you know, there are times where we have to stop what we're doing that we love and move on to something else. And yes, it's not pleasant, but it's okay, because we will come back to this. Are you good, Sally?
I'm good. I think next slide.
Okay. Coping skills. I love coping skills. We all have coping skills. Coping skills are life skills. We all have our own way to cope. We all, as we've grown up, we've realized what works for us, what doesn't. I know there are plenty of times I've walked out of my house and I've just sat on my porch because it will not be anyone's best interest for me to go back in that house. That is my coping skills. They know mommy is left, mommy's coping, just don't go out there. And it's very important we all find these coping skills, because it is very easy to get overwhelmed in life. It can be overwhelming, be it work, family life, getting all our appointments done, dealing with other family members, you know, in-laws, relatives. It can be overwhelming. Putting groceries away can be overwhelming. All of a sudden, it's been a busy week and you go in to do the laundry and you're in awe of what has happened in that space of time. There is many things throughout the day that make us need to use our coping skills, and that is okay. That's what helps us cope and get ourselves ready to just move on, because that is life. We just got to move on. Things happen. Things that are out of our control happen. And sometimes things that are in our control happen too, and that's okay. We just have to cope with it. Now, these are used throughout life. They change and develop as we grow, as we come across new experiences, new situations, as we meet new people. You know, you have to have coping skills when you deal with people that maybe you don't necessarily get along with, or you don't have the same views as, and that is okay. What we have to do is teach and introduce these to our children and our individuals and our learners, because they're a very important part of our lives. We have to decide what is suitable for our child. For one child, it may be hand squeezes, jumping jacks, counting to 10, a big, tight bear hug. For another, it might be, I need a break, I need to go to my room. Perfect. Their coping skill might be just to go to a whole new location in the house. That is okay. But we need to figure out what works for our child, in this situation, and what doesn't. You know, there are situations where we have individuals that, okay, count to 10. He knows what you're trying to do. He is upset right now, and you're trying to make him not upset, and you're asking him to count. That was not a suitable coping skill for him. Coping skill was teaching him, I'm getting mad now. I'm getting mad at them. I need to sit outside. Perfect. Thank you for letting me know. Let's sit outside. And then when he's calm, we talk it through. But for your 3-year-old may not be suitable for your more independent 9-year-old. What may be suitable for your 9-year-old that has those, is that nonverbal individual that has those needs, may be very different to your 4-year-old that is now in preschool. So it is very individualized. It's finding what works for that person. And you may have individuals in your home that have completely different coping skills. That is okay, because it is what works for that person. And when you need it, take deep breaths. Things happen, and be it everything has been going smoothly, and one child is doing their homework at the table and the other child is playing Lego, and then another one comes up and just wipes the cup and the juice goes everywhere. This is life. It happens. What do? You take those deep breaths. You got to breathe. Take those deep breaths. And I find we automatically go to the verbal response. No, don't do that. What did you do? Everyone move. Quick, pick up your papers. Watch your brother because he's over there. It's all, and that can be very overwhelming in any situation because it's a lot of words. We're trying to get things done, and our children or individuals are trying to take in what we're saying, and they may have different levels of taking stuff in. And so sometimes it is okay to just have that no words, just take that deep breath and just, okay, what do we need to do? And then just start cleaning up, or can you get a cloth? Can you move your papers? It's just in that moment where we need those deep breaths to kind of get our head just to calm down and not react like we really want to react. And this is all going to be learning for you and your child or the individual. And it's all going to vary from situation, from day to day sometimes. Sometimes someone had a bad day at school, their friend didn't talk to them, or they didn't get to finish their sandwich at school, or here they can't find the last puzzle piece, or Barbie doll is missing a shoe. These things are going to happen. We're going to plan for the best, but prepare for the worst always, because then really you have everything ready for every possible scenario. So when you don't need that worst scenario, it wasn't too bad. But we always have to have those plans, because if we plan for the best day ever, we're going to be, it may happen, but if it does not happen, we're going to be really sad. And know the possibilities. Know when they possibly could occur. Don't let them phase you out. Could it occur when all of a sudden everyone is finished doing what they need to do, and two want to watch their favorite shows, but they're two very different shows? Or one of them wants to make a puzzle on the floor, and the other one has got his racetrack just going over every puzzle piece possible. These can occur. It's everyday life. It's a home life. And we just have to, don't let it phase you. This is going to happen. It's going to happen every day. And we just have to learn how to cope with it and deal with it, and teaching ourselves to cope, that it is okay. This is, what are we going to do? We still have to go on. We still have to feed. We still have to do laundry. And we're still going to get all of a sudden someone coming up, grabbing our legs or our waist, giving us a big hug, and then running off. So take those little moments. Those coping skills are just there to help you in that moment. And it's a small moment. Everything else, there's bigger moments going to come. So make sure you don't let those small things that happen that may seem huge at that time affect everything else. Because in the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, it could be something else, and it could all just be back to normal. So you having coping skills and teaching everyone else those coping skills that are going to help them is going to make everything return to as normal as possible, as soon as possible. And a big thing is patience. Everything takes time. Someone may do great for 5 days, and all of a sudden, no, I am not going to ask to go to a quiet place. I am going to finish what I'm telling you now. That's going to happen. That's when you use your coping skill. Have patience, and when all is calm, then you go on. A huge one.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And I think that practice when calm is important too, because so often we wait to try to teach our children the coping skills that they should be using, or even teaching ourselves the coping skills they should be using when our tensions are highest, when our emotions are so high, when we are truly, maybe even physiologically out of control, when it is too hard to stop from hitting your brother, if you're a child, or when it is too hard to stop screaming because everything is just too big, too much. I'm sure that everyone here has at some point tried to stop a tantrum in the middle of the tantrum. Very, very extremely difficult, almost impossible. You kind of have to just stand back and let them get through it. Then you can go to the coping skills. But ideally, you would be using those far in advance, and you're going to practice them during the greatest time of the day when your kids are like having fun. Now, don't interrupt their play, but maybe you're having a quiet moment and they've played all day, they're happy, and you're snuggling, or maybe they don't want to snuggle, but they're sitting there with you, and you can talk about, hey, look at the way I take deep breaths, and then show them. You take a deep breath, they take a deep breath. When you are using your coping skills, I came home the other day and everything was a mess, and I heard my daughter go, "Oh, she's gonna be mad," and I was, but it was like, actually, it was great because it prompted me to like, oh no, I don't want them to see me get mad. I want them to see me use my coping skills. I say, oh, I'm going to use my coping skill, and I'm going to turn on some music and walk out of the room. I did it. I walked over, I turned on music, I came back to the room, and they saw me use it. And I also, I stated what it was. I am using my coping skill now. So they not only see me doing it, they know what I'm doing. And so I think it's important that they know that this is something that everybody uses. And you could find out what skills are best by just observing them. Do you see them when they're calmly like playing with their fingers together, or, maybe you want to do something with sensory that, they can do with their hands. If you see them take those deep breaths naturally, that's something to explore. If you see they hate things, that's probably not going to be a coping skill. It might be something you want to teach them to tolerate. Like my daughter does not like the way it feels when she takes a deep breath. I have no idea why, but for her, it's something that's aversive. But over and over again, teachers have told her, just take a deep breath. If you take a deep breath, things will be easier. And to her, it's no, that makes me feel out of control. So yes, we can work on tolerating deep breaths, but that's not going to calm her down. But she likes to draw or paint. So why don't you doodle on your paper during, while you're listening in class, and that can help you calm down. But I think just, like Jill said, the patience though, and because it's not going to happen right away, and accepting that this is a learned skill and it takes years and years for us to really get this right.
Yeah, and like what Sally says, having our children see us use our coping skills, be it we break our favorite mug, or we spill the sugar everywhere, or we stub our toe, there are going to be those times where, we just don't use our coping skills. But when they see us using it, oh, I've lost something. Yesterday I lost this presentation, and yes, I paced a lot and I had a lot of deep breaths, but I took enough deep breaths that I looked hard enough and I found it right out in the open. But, my kids they knew it was very important, but they saw me just, okay, take a deep breath and go back over my steps, that there are things you can do in the moment, even though you are, panicking inside, but that you have coping skills and that you use them in everyday situations. But again, yes, patience. Okay, functional communication is, we communicate every day, be it verbally or non-verbally. And non-verbal, my facial expressions tell a lot of what I'm thinking. And I've been told masks do not help. So functional communication is when you're communicating and it's telling what you need. Everyone communicates differently. Again, I am very much non-verbal, so my kids know how I'm feeling from across the room. My husband is very verbal, so they know exactly what Daddy is thinking. But we have to remember that our children or our learners, they all communicate differently. And we have to start off by thinking, well, what is their level of communication? Are they verbal? Do they speak with one word, two words? Do they know how to communicate? Do they know what it means to communicate? What are their current abilities? And this can vary from, obviously 18 months all the way through adulthood. And it varies with abilities, it varies with diagnosis they have, and it also varies with their home life. Are they going to be more verbal because you're more verbal? It's all individual, and it's all to do with that person, and we need to figure out what level they have before we set those expectations. Do we want our 5-year-old? Are we expecting our 5-year-old? Well, what do you want to drink? That is a very, very open question. Or what do we want to eat? Or what do we want for snack? A lot of ours in our homes can't answer that. It's just too much. They don't know what it means, and they don't know how to pick and communicate what they want. So a lot of ours have two choices. Do you want this or this? And they will pick, and we will build on that. So when we're holding it up, we will go, do you want crackers or chips? And they will point, and then we go chips. And then they will say chips. And eventually we'll go to chips, please. So it's all knowing what level they're at and how we want to make those small steps. So if I am not there, or a staff that knows them aren't there, that when someone else asks, they have the ability to communicate their wants and needs, because communication is key. We want our child to be able to tell us if they hurt, if they're hungry, if someone has hurt them, if they need something, if they're sad, if they're happy, if, anything. Communication is so important. And we want to make sure that when we're there, we're helping them build on it as much as possible. So when we're not there, they can still communicate. And a lot of our individuals, we'll see a lot of those behaviors occurring because they cannot communicate what they want. And it's very heartbreaking to see, because when you figure out what they want, it could be something as simple as crystal light. We have one individual, and he's got a huge calendar in his room, and he has filled out what he does every day. He likes to go and get his drink every day. And there are certain days he calls mom, and there are certain days that he might have an outing. And that has helped him. He is not as anxious, and he can visually see what he needs to communicate. And then we've worked with staff, because he is verbal, but won't be if he's not prompted. So he has a certain way to stand, and we know then, hey, do you need something? And that is when he will go, oh, crystal light, please. Perfect. But it took us time and working through a lot of behaviors to get to that point, to realize, oh, he needs that visual to help him and prompt him to verbally communicate what he needs. And that is when we have to realize the level of all the people in our house, or all the people we're going to come across. Does, like I mentioned earlier about the schedules, is that schedule, that verbal or the visual schedule, going to help them with their verbal communication? Maybe they don't have verbal communication. Maybe it's just going to be a case of, instead of them stomping up and down because they want a snack, you holding up those two snacks and then just pointing. Or when you say, what do you need? And we work on them just pointing to the snack box. It's all about working with what they have. And we really want to focus on knowing their abilities and building on it. And working with all those, be it siblings or grandparents, family, friends that come in to do the same. Because as we mentioned earlier, consistency is key. Just like with those coping skills, when someone comes in, they need to be aware, no, that's their coping skill, or we're going to prompt them to use their coping skill, because it's very easy for an outsider to come in and think they're helping, and it's just erupted. It's made, that volcano erupt and possibly back to square one. So that's why communication and consistency and everyone being on the same page is key. And likewise, modeling before you give and do. You have those two snacks in your hand. What do you want? They point. Oh, you want chips. Very good. Point, touch. What do you want? You want chips. Good job. Or even have them try and say it. Shh. Good. They may never be able to say the full word, but you can see them making that effort. They're communicating the way they can, and everything can be built on. It just takes time and practice. And we are the best models for our individuals and our children. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But in this instance, you want to be that model. You want to be the model with the coping skills. You want to be that model with the communication, but we have to always take into consideration our child and how they are communicating. What is the best way for them to communicate? Maybe they will never, verbal communication will never be the best way for them to communicate. Maybe it is going to be what we call PECS, the picture communication system. Maybe they are going to be needing a device that they touch snack please, or chips, or I want swing. And that could be where they are, and that is okay. That is how they communicate, and it works for them. It works for you.
Yeah, and I think
Sally?
yeah, I think focusing too, like on that communication, when you're looking at it, you want to look at it in two ways. So communication is back and forth. So when we're working on building those communication skills, it's going to be the first thing when I go into a home for a parent consultation, when I go and meet a client for the first time, if I'm working with someone in a school, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assess their communication skills. I'm going to assess all the skills, but communication is going to be key. If you have not had assessments done for your children, even if you can't find a behavior therapist who's going to be there all the time, even if you don't have all the resources you need, if you can get a good, solid assessment, it is going to go a long way in making sure that you're building up those skills. Even informal assessments where you're kind of probing and figuring out what they need can be very, very helpful. And there's a lot of resources for that. But I really think the main thing what you want to do is you want to assess what can they do? What are they understanding, and what are they communicating? And what are those skills maybe missing in that process? So for understanding, if I say, hey, can you go into the kitchen and grab a pitcher and put some Crystal Light in it and mix the water in and stir it up, and then make sure you put it in the fridge and you share it with all three of your roommates? Oh my gosh, if I told that to one of my learners, he would absolutely have no idea what I said. He might be frustrated. He might even go to his room. And then I would say, well, looks like he didn't want Crystal Light. That's not true. I communicated in a way that was not understood. So to that specific individual, I would want to say, are you thirsty? Walk into the kitchen. I would give those single step directions. And then, we would work on it from there. The other thing is when they're communicating, there's going to be a few things that I want to know. First of all, I want to know if my individual, they want to know, I want to teach them to say no. No, it is so important. It is something we don't train. I think we do, like maybe in school settings, but at home, sometimes it's hard. It is very difficult when children across the board learn to say no. I mean, that's what the terrible twos are all about. But are they communicating in a functional way? It is a safety skill. It is a skill that teaches them to ask for escape later. It's a building block skill. So it's like one of those things that they want to know. You want to make sure they know immediately. Other things are, can they ask for their basic needs? Water, food, they're cold. For some individuals, it's going to be very difficult to talk about their emotions. Those smiley face icons can be very helpful. But for a lot of times I work with folks that maybe don't look at faces, and recognizing that a happy face means I'm happy may not be what they recognize. They may not know that a happy face means that they feel good. They might not even show a happy face when they feel good. So we really want to make sure that when you're going in and you're working on this, that you're really meeting them where they're at. Then we have higher functioning, and I don't like that word so much, but we have individuals who are really verbal communicators, and they're saying lots of things and they're doing lots of things and they are speaking a lot, but is it functional? Does that individual know how to gain the attention of those who need that attention when it's the appropriate time? So I have an individual who likes to talk and he likes to have everyone's attention. He wants to play games and do fun things. But instead of saying, hey, will you play a game with me? Or can I have a minute, please? It sounds more like, farting noises behind their ear, or cuss words in the background, things like that, because there was never, he wasn't taught, he doesn't know how to get the attention of those who need it in a way that makes them want to give that attention and help him to gain what he needs. So I think it's really important that we hit those things, like that attention getting is a huge piece of communication. Understanding what they understand. Do I need to put a picture in place? I told a gentleman who works a regular job, I said, oh, I'll be back in a week. I didn't understand that I didn't take the time really to know what he understood about time. So when I said a week, he's thinking I mean a day or two. And he's very disappointed when I don't show up an hour or two later. So, but the next time I spoke to him, I pulled out a calendar, we drew out a week. He saw where the week was. Oh, I'll see you in a week. And there was no problem. So taking the time to understand what they understand, and then to just build up those skills, and to know that sometimes functional communication is really annoying. I have worked with children who maybe they want the iPad all the time, and they used to scream and cry and have the tantrum. Well, then they learn the word iPad, which is great. So then they don't have to yell and scream for it. Instead, they could say iPad. But then you get iPad, 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 time for dinner. What do you want for dinner? iPad. Can you go to your room? iPad. We're in the room, the iPad dies, iPad. And you hear this all the time. And it can be like, well, maybe it would be better if they didn't know the word, but it's not, because now I can address that need. I can say, oh, iPad, we can pull up the schedule. Well, you get the iPad at 9 o'clock if they're able to understand that. Or maybe, oh, first dinner, then iPad. I can address it. And I might have to address that question 500 different times. And that's okay, because that's communication. I think sometimes I see this a lot with people who want to take, like when the children have PECs or maybe an iPad they're using for communication, and they want to leave those special words off. Well, they ask for candy too much. We shouldn't put candy on this board, because then they're just going to ask for it all the time. No, because they're still going to be frustrated they don't have candy, and now they have no way to communicate with me what they want and need. So I'm going to be saying, well, are you hungry? Are you cold? Are you thirsty? Do you want candy? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to go to bed? Is this just a bad day? Is it me? Maybe I should take this personally and you just don't like me and you're acting this way to make me mad. No, they just want candy. Yes, it's frustrating when they hit candy 700 times, but they're still telling me something. So when you're doing this, make sure we do it in a way that's really giving your child the voice that they need to express what they want to express, what is important to them. And then we teach those other skills like waiting, like attention getting, like those things that, hey, if you, we can teach, it's a skill to learn that if you ask for candy 500 times, maybe you have to wait longer for candy because, but you could teach those skills, and it should be something that's taught in a way that they can understand, and it's appropriate for them, because the voice, that voice of everyone is really what makes it so that we are successful. We talked about, I think at the beginning, Jill talked about meaningful change, giving a voice to the people that we're working with, to your children. When your children have their own voice, their individual voice, that is the meaningful change. That is something they will take into life, and they will have their whole life. So make sure that, so I think, I know for Jill and I, this is probably the most important topic of what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. And now we've got crisis situations that happen all the time.
Yes, and crisis, I like, oh, go ahead.
No, you're up, Sally.
All right, with crisis, I like the word crisis kind of, because I feel like it's part of what happens, and in a crisis, we can define it as, oh my gosh, I forgot to make dinner and now the peas are burned and the kitchen's smoky and everything else. But what I don't like about the word crisis is it's something that we use when we talk about the challenging behavior of individuals with special needs, or maybe with autism, or maybe with some learning disabilities, or with different kinds of needs. We use that word crisis, but maybe we don't use it with other parts of the population, when truth is this is something that we're just talking about the challenging behavior. We're talking about the points where, we maybe safety is at risk, things like that. So I think I want to emphasize that today, when I'm talking about crisis, we're really just talking about those challenging behaviors that are going to occur regardless of how well we plan. There's things we can do to prevent them. There's things we can do to make them better. There's skills we can teach. There's functional communication that we can talk about. But I just really want to emphasize, I know that this says crisis, but we're talking about those everyday situations that happen for everyone. And I think it's important that we understand that no matter what we do, they happen. I can have my box of things filled out and the best snack in the world, and maybe my child was yelled at on the bus and they come home and they're crying, and there's no way that that homework's going to get done in that hour. Maybe everything is good, the baby's down for a nap, and we have our little Tim's downstairs playing, and the baby wakes up, but the sensory of the crying baby is something that is likely to make Tim go into a crisis situation. And we see the screaming and the crying and the hitting, and maybe in that situation, the TV is broken, and it's so hard. It is so hard in that moment because you feel like you've done everything possible to avoid this. You set things up right, things were good, but that's life, things are going to happen. So what we do in that time is we help through the crisis, we keep safety, we remain calm as best as possible, we stick to that schedule. This is especially important if you see a child maybe who is yelling a lot to get out of doing a chore or to avoid homework. If that's what you're seeing, the best thing you can do is get through that crisis, get through it safely, then just go right back to where they were doing. I know it was hard. This chore, is something that we don't want to do, but we're gonna do it anyways, and we're gonna make sure. But it could also be a form of it is almost always a form of communication. So it shows that there's a lacking skill. So we can use the information to make things better later. So instead of breaking the TV next time you hear the baby crying, what can we do instead? And some of it's going to be on us to modify the environment. Maybe I set the TV higher. It is great to try to have playtime and nap time at the same time, or maybe not. Maybe the playtime's what woke the baby up in the first place, so I can adjust that. But really, it's going to be about teaching the skills to tolerate the crying baby, because if there's two children in the home, they're going to interact and they are going to hear each other. It's a lot of it is going to be on our part, using our coping skills and accepting the situation. But the other thing I think is really important to do is to seek help. So if you have that challenging behavior that does reach maybe what we would call crisis, that really does reach things where you have a child or a parent or a sibling there's a safety risk, where you have a situation where you have a home where you can't have any valuable set out at all, where there's no glass, there's no cups on the table, where a working parent is unable to work. That's where we really do want to start seeking out those resources, because there are sometimes things that can be done to make the situation better. I know the resources aren't as plentiful as we want them to be, but seek it out, find out what you can. So there are some free resources out there. Sometimes it might be that you just have another parent come in and help you out, help you assess that situation. But you do want to make sure that you are consistent. And if you do have, professional services, try to use those, to consistently follow a plan. But don't be too hard on yourself. Know that these things happen. Stick to your schedule, move on, and don't carry it over. So if the morning was very hard and little Bob did not want to get out of bed and go into the school bus, and it was an hour of screaming and yelling, and now the room is a mess and things are difficult, try to deal with it then. Even if it's later for school, it might be better to just go ahead and have him fix the room up in the morning, or with your help, get it done and get to school, because that means when he comes home, it's a fresh start. We're not talking about the morning. They may need to talk about it. Sometimes we want to, talk about hard things, and that's fine, but keep it short and simple and then move on. Yes, I know this morning was difficult, but we're going to do better tomorrow. Maybe we could try this instead, or maybe we're just going to get back on schedule and just try again. And then move on and say, but let's see, it's time for snack. And then after snack, I think we do our homework. And then, I bet we should pick out the best show of the day. What do you think it's going to be? If that's part of your schedule, you're not going to give them extra things. It's really important. We don't say, if you stop crying, I'm going to buy you an ice cream, because then they're going to, maybe cry next time to get that ice cream if it's valuable enough. You might see more, you might see that increase in that challenging behavior. But but we're also not going to threaten new great big punishments. If you don't stop crying right now, you know what, you're going to lose TV for the next 4 weeks. Now, if they know ahead of time that if they don't finish their homework, they don't get to access the iPad that night, that's okay. I mean, that's something you've set up before. It's valuable. It can be something that maybe, you use in your family. But really, we want to avoid the crisis. When we're dealing with these hard situations, just get through them and use, I know Jill mentioned that verbal behavior is our first response to crisis. That is something that can be very, very detrimental, especially when you hit a situation where it's not just like a little bit of that kind of junky problem behavior, but it's that real scary crisis behavior where you're, knocking over items, throwing things, hitting, screaming. At that point, we're not at a point where our verbal directions are going to be helpful at all. We want to stay very quiet. We want to maintain safety. And we want to be there for when it's over. And that's the point where we can possibly process. And by processing, we don't need to talk about every problem that occurred, especially if they're things that are occurring a lot. If you have a teenager who's been very, very good and then they stay out all night, yes, you're going to want to have that conversation. But if you have a child who's constantly maybe hits their brother every time they sit close to each other, or maybe it's hit strangers on the bus. Every single time they see a stranger, they reach out and they hit that stranger, and it's occurring regularly, and you've already told them that's not the right thing to do. You don't need to have that conversation every time. You deal with it, you move on, and you kind of figure out some strategies to make sure that to the best of your ability, it doesn't happen again. You might look, if it's very scary, again, you're going to want to seek out those resources, possibly get that functional assessment, and make sure that you have some intervention strategies. But again, they're going to occur. They're going to mess up your schedule. It's going to be difficult. Sometimes you will be late to things. Sometimes things won't get done the way you want, but we just move on and do the best we can.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, when these incidents or these moments occur, we, even though we may not feel it, are the ones that are in control of these situations. How we react will have an effect on how they continue to react. So this is when, those coping skills are invaluable. Take that deep breath. Okay, this is happening. You cannot stop it right now. It is happening. We just have to do what we can in this situation. Is everyone safe? Or is everything that needs to be put up? And I mean, it could be safe as in there could be aggressive behaviors, but also it could be a situation where, okay, we were doing arts and crafts, so let me just put the scissors and anything sharp up, because if they go on the floor, then his little brother is crawling on the floor, and I don't want that to be an issue. So it's in these that we have that quick scan around to, okay, let me just move these, because if I'm focused on him, I don't want to leave something for someone else to get into or possibly hurt by. Managing the situation, again, it's very individualized to what is occurring, why it may be occurring, and how that individual de-escalates and calms down afterwards. As Sally says, is it a time to talk, or is it a time to, okay, continue on? You still have to pick up your blocks. Would you like me to help? And get that communication going. So once that communication is open again, and I mean two-way communication, whereas you're talking to them, they're answering, they're talking to you, and you're answering, then you can move on and get that chore done, because at the end of the day, you still have to do a chore. Is it maybe you're putting it off for another 20 minutes, or maybe you're doing it at the time? Again, that's going to be dependent on the situation, who else is in the house, what else is going on, and then move on with the day. These are going to occur, but the important thing is not to let this one incident change the course of how your day is going or what your plans are. Yes, you may not be able to be in the grocery store as long. Maybe you mightn't be able to go to a grocery store. Maybe you're going to miss that family event or be late for that family event. again, these things happen, and it's in these moments we learn, okay, so this caused that. Next time, right, we'll start getting them ready an hour earlier, because maybe they felt rushed. Maybe they couldn't make that decision over what t-shirt to wear. Maybe they didn't want to go. Again, that's not an option, but these are all learning situations that we build on and we learn from. And it may occur next time, but it may be shorter. And all these are life lessons. And even though it happens, it's not the end of the world. We move on, take that breath, don't carry it forward, and move on with the day.
And Ginny, I see
So
too.
we have some takeaways. Oh, let me go in there then. Okay. Oh yeah, we will remain for questions at the end. And then we have Jenny, functional communication and understanding one-step directions. And this disability and the reason. Yes.
And Jill, if you want to turn off the PowerPoint, I think we'll go to a regular screen so we can see everybody easier.